Well, hello there. Welcome to A Film a Day with me, Jordan Woodley. And today, considering that we have entered June and that is LGBTQ plus month, with a little bit of planning, I have decided to integrate some films into the month's watching. So it won't be a solid LGBTQ plus series of films throughout the whole month, but it's going to have smatterings throughout, maybe 2 a week perhaps, to sort of explore queer cinema and its representations throughout the decades. And again, it gives me an excuse to watch a classic film, another classic I get to tick off that's been hanging over the docket for a long, long time, that I can finally say I have watched the classic Stephen Elliott Priscilla, Queen of the Desert. There are some strange preconceptions that I had about this film that I suppose it's partly Mandela effect and partly just misconception of what I thought this film was going to be going in. And of course, the first and foremost was the fact that I thought it was a musical. Now, famously, it is a musical for the stage, but the staged musical, came about after the film and was sort of an adaptation of the film, which of course normally it's the other way around, where you get a adaptation of a film based on a staged musical, and sometimes they decide to not make the film a musical. But in this case, that's the way it went. And it is interesting, because I knew Hugo Weaving was in this, but I didn't know Terence Stamp was in this, and I didn't know Guy Pearce was in this. And it's interesting to see that time capsule of particularly Hugo Weaving and Guy Pearce, who of course were, they weren't unknown actors at the time, but their stars had only just begun to shine. And of course, Hugo Weaving went on to become the megastar, and Guy Pearce, of course, has a long and illustrious career. And of course, Terence Stamp, conversely, before this, had a well-established career. And it's interesting, as I think I've covered many times, to see that convergence of classic cinema actors overlapping with actors who would go on to become equally as respected and acknowledged performers in the industry. The other thing I suppose I noted is the fact that it's funny, going all the way back to, I think, Baby Teeth is when I mentioned this. And almost prophetically, I suppose, because I said when I watched Baby Teeth, I am intrigued by Australian cinema. It is an area that I have no strong grounding in, and that I would like to further explore sort of the cinema style of Australia and see the differences between the Hollywood and the British methods of storytelling. And without real intention, I've consequently seen a number of Australian-led productions through this series, whether it's helmed by a prominent Australian director, or one who will go on to Hollywood but in their earlier independent phase, or films that are, an Australian-centred production where there is no Hollywood, there is no mainstream or global cinema to it. It is just an Australian-produced film, and this definitely is in the keeping of that. There's no intention for this to be some big Hollywood film. I mean, of course, this was a huge risk, from both sides, I suppose, of the LGBTQ plus coin. In terms of course, inevitably, there was always going to be a homophobic and transphobic backlash against creating a film that depicts the lifestyles of something that a lot of people of that time period were very critical and aggressively against. But then, on the other side of that, of course, these are three, I believe, straight, but at least definitely cis male actors, all playing either drag queens or a transsexual. And of course, from the, and there is that thing where, of course, a film that's seen, or a TV series that's seen as profound and forward thinking at one point will always inevitably go on to be seen as backwards and archaic. Give enough time. And so, of course, there is that question over, you had, three straight white men playing, a minority group who possibly should have been given their own voice. And I dispute that. I think it's I appreciate the argument, but I think it's a complicated one. And again, as a cis straight male, I understand that maybe my opinion is not the most important in the room, but my feeling as someone who has an understanding of the film culture of the time is that it needed those leading men. It needed people who had major names, and it needed to use them to propel the film so that it didn't end up being buried as just a film for, a gay film for the gay community, that this was supposed to be a gay trans film for everyone. And I do think it has really complex layers to it. It's interesting because I was talking to my fiancée and producer, Helen, about 2-1 Fu, which of course is a film that inexplicably I saw many years before I've seen Priscilla, and the whole thing of, they're very similar films. It's very Dante's Peak, Inferno, about it, where it's, the accusations could be made that one ripped the other off, and yet, if you look in the production history, they were made around the same time. But 2-1 Fu is a film that unfortunately veers more towards the 1940s and 50s interpretation of drag queens and transsexuals in the sort of not quite comedic sense, but the outside of reality sense of that depiction. Whereas Priscilla takes itself deadly seriously. The characters are funny, and there are funny moments and interactions and set pieces where you go, that's, they are reacting to funny quirks of Australian culture, or just, things that happen to people that are just amusing. But they themselves are serious characters. They are, two drag queens and a transsexual who have an act. And they are not the butt of the joke. Their point is not to be, look how quirky. Okay, I walk that back. It is pointed out how quirky they are, but not because of their sexuality, but more because of their personalities and their inner conflicts and their fractious relationships as they go on this road trip, and how people react to them. But they're not figures of fun. They're not there to sort of lambast the community. They are there to depict the everyday experiences of people from this community. And I think, as I say, from the outsider's perspective, I really sympathized with the struggle that these people must go through, and the difficulties to, the vulnerability that they express, at times, and the fact that the road trip is the perfect platform because it's about leaving the comfort zone. And I imagine when you come from a community like this, like any, not minority community, but community, that is not the cis straight white male, tower that we have, that traditionally, you have that sense of, they find their nooks, they find places where they are accepted, and that's sort of what happens. But by taking them out of that environment and putting them in the wilderness, you have that sense of threat and concern and uncertainty and harassment and bigotry that allows us to sort of see the sense of, oh well, this is not just it's not just troubling, it's dangerous for them. But then it's not all that. That's the nice thing about it. It's not all about them being abused and harassed. It's not supposed to be a soapbox or melodrama about the misery that is their lifestyle. It is one part of a bigger proportion. And the fact that they have environments they go to that might be a little hostile, or characters I might meet where they're not entirely sure what this character is going to make of them, only to then reveal that they are accepted, or this person does like them and sort of treats them fairly normal. And they might get it wrong, like the character of Bob, who I think is a really great character. He's a great representation of someone who doesn't always fully get it and doesn't always get it right. He will make the mistake of, say, calling them men. But he's well-intentioned and he's willing to accept his failings as a person and try to do his best to be better. And I think that's a very strong character type. Just to return to sort of our three leads, each one has such a distinct personality. I mean, you know, Terence Stamp plays the transsexual Beatrice. No, Bernadette. Don't know why I had Beatrice. Oh, it's because I'm thinking Bernice, because people sometimes refer to her as Bernice. But Bernadette, as with really stoically, it's not leaning into camp, over the top expectations of the character. It is played, he plays her with a certain sense of dignity, and there are moments where he has funny lines and reacts to things, but in himself he plays a stoic character who has quite a complex personality. Hugo Weaving similarly plays this quite conflicted person, a person who accepts themselves and yet at the same time has that that internalized homophobia that he still expects other people to perceive him as lesser, particularly when it comes to sort of the family aspect of his storyline. And then you have Guy Pearce, who plays much more the aggressive, traditional sort of what's the word? Extroverted character who puts himself almost in danger because he so wants to confront people with who he is that he's willing to just throw himself in front of people just to get the attention. And I think the fact that they're so different people, and that again, my expectations could have been that they play, that my understanding of that community is that their personalities are very similar. They play very sort of these brash queens, and they do have moments of brash queendom, but they are individuals and they have very different relationships to the world around them and very different ways of projecting their sexuality and their identity to people. And I think that shows nuance and careful consideration of character and representation of community. So I do think this is a really, really strong film, and far be it from me, this is obviously a classic of that of the genre. But I really did appreciate it, and I enjoyed it. I didn't anticipate I wouldn't enjoy it, but I was uncertain whether I would find that connection point that would allow me to emotionally engage. That I did, and I really did find it an interesting and complex piece of cinema that really did give me the access to a community I don't still have a great deal of knowledge on, but I now feel a little bit more informed about. So, yes, very happy. Great way to start June. So as I say, smattering some more LGBTQ plus films throughout the month, but we'll sort of they'll be interwoven as I go on. Anyway, if you like the video, please hit the like button, comment below, and share the video because those all help me in the algorithm. Subscribe to the channel and hit that little bell to get notifications when new videos are uploaded. Check out my back catalogue of films. There are over 150 of them now, so please do check some of those out. And follow me on Twitter at Jordan_Woodley, where I'm always tweeting about movies and TV shows, and I share the links to the videos once they're uploaded on YouTube. Thank you for joining me. Take care.